Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, happy Thursday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on The Brian Nichols Show. This is something I love to do. I'm having candidate after candidate. So, yes, of course, it's going to be a fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host. But today, before we get to our another candidate we have here on the show, I want to go ahead and give a shout-out to today's sponsor, and that is the one and only Young Americans for Liberty Operation Win at the Door, folks. I truly cannot tell you enough about how amazing Young Americans for Liberty is. They are out there helping get real live liberty folks into office. And folks, if you want to go ahead and be a part of this amazing team over at Young Americans for Liberty, well, right now through November 8th, they are in the process of Operation Win at the Door. And you can go ahead and get paid to help get liberty folks elected to office, whether it's helping get concealed carry into action, like in states here in Indiana, for example, or helping fight the lockdowns every step of the way. Young Americans for Liberty has been instrumental in getting state reps across the United States into office. So you want to get paid along the way? Hey, why not? $2,800 a month, plus housing and gas completely covered. Head over to briannicholsshow.com/YAL, and you'll be brought over to Young Americans for Liberty. You can learn more about Operation Win at the Door, and of course, go ahead and apply. So one more time, that is briannicholsshow.com/YAL. All right, on to today's episode. Yes, I teased it. Another candidate. This time we're going back right next door to where I used to hail, up in New Jersey. Chris Russomanno, welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us and looking forward to this conversation because, Chris, yes, you are, in fact, running there with a big L next to your name up in New Jersey, which is a state right next to where I lived over in Philadelphia. I worked over in New Jersey for a number of years. I know, my goodness, New Jersey, Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania, that is, where I live, New York, all those states up there in the Northeast. They need some liberty. So talk to us. You're running for office. Why on earth did you decide to go ahead and run for office with a big L next to your name of all things?
We need. I was almost quoting somebody else, but we need changes. I don't think that the duopoly that we have, the two-party system, is working. We've had it. I think they've had their day in the sun. Those parties have been around for over 100 years. Years ago, I used to be, I guess, what you would consider a neocon. And I had my epiphany, I guess you would call it, with Ron Paul during the Ron Paul revolution, the Ron Paul moment. I realized I liked what Ron Paul had to say. He's actually what drew me to becoming a libertarian and libertarian thoughts and ideas. And once I saw what they did to him as far as giving him media blackout, making fun. One of the moments I've heard other libertarians say too was that Rudy Giuliani moment where Ron Paul was essentially saying that we need to end the wars. And all we're doing is creating people that don't like us. And I remember Giuliani laughing at him. I remember even the moderator, I forget who it was, maybe it was Megyn Kelly back on Fox, laughing at him. And I thought, wow, this isn't fair or balanced at all, which I think is something that fair and balanced Fox. And from that moment on, I started really getting into libertarianism, finding out about the philosophy, and realizing that it's a truly beautiful philosophy. Would you like to hear recently, a few of us were at the Burlington County Fair, and I spoke to a lot of people in my district at the fair, and I had to give them my elevator pitch, because when people see libertarian, our mascot is a porcupine. We don't hurt anybody else, but if you try to hurt us, then we'll act. We believe in non-aggression. So I came down with what I consider my elevator pitch. I had to give it to him. Would you like to hear it?
Of course, yes.
All right. So libertarians, we're known as the party of principle, and the principle we follow is the non-aggression principle, which stipulates that you can do whatever you want as long as you do not use force or aggression against somebody else. So do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt or affect me. We're good. We believe you shouldn't lie, cheat, or steal, and that you should keep your promises. We apply these same standards to the government as well. And in a nutshell, to me, that is libertarianism.
Yeah. Well, and if I could even challenge a little bit more, I'd make it even shorter. Don't hurt people. Don't take their stuff. Honestly, it comes down to like our ideas are so basic and like common sense that you can really just give it to a person just like that and they'll get it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about our ideas is that sometimes we don't have to spend our time going through trying to explain or good idea our ideas to people and good idea them to death, that is, but rather just talk about the issues they care about and bring our libertarian ideas and principles to those problems with our solutions. So let's talk about that. You have three main issues on your website: money, war, and civil rights that are leading the charge. Talk to us, Chris. Why are those the main issues you're focusing on when you're running for office?
All right. War, any of the wars that we've had in the last probably forever, really. But at least this century and the last century, we didn't need to have them. It seems like I hearken back to President Eisenhower when he warned us about the military-industrial complex and what it was doing to the country. Any of those wars were unnecessary wars. We just got out of a 20-year war in Afghanistan, which really has gotten us nothing. Even when I talk to people, I was speaking to people, what did that war get us? Mm-hmm. The only thing it got us was a bunch of young men and women who got affected negatively, either physically or mentally. That's all it got us after 20 years of war. And now it seems like the politicians want the wars to continue. Now we're getting involved in a war in Ukraine. I feel bad for the Ukrainian people. I don't think Putin should have attacked Ukraine, but I also don't think that we should be running a proxy war and financing it when we have issues here at home that need to be taken care of also. And again, this war, they're starting it with a nuclear power, Russia. At least in Afghanistan, the Afghanis, I don't think had nuclear weapons, and I think they were using rifles and things of that nature. They didn't even have nuclear weapons, but now they want to get us into another war, this time with a nuclear power that could have some profound effects on the country. Tying into that, of course, back in the day, my dad used to tell me that we can have guns or butter. The butter being so generous social programs here at home and any other pork projects that politicians want to have, or guns being war, foreign policy, so on and so forth. So kind of ties into my other one, ending the Fed. With the Federal Reserve in place, that allows politicians to have both. They don't need to decide, oh, do I want to pander to my base and just give away things so that they'll vote for me? Or being the butter or the guns, would I like to go and start far off wars and keep the weapons manufacturers happy? With the Federal Reserve, you can have both, and it's all at our expense. Us being your average taxpayer, we feel the pain of it when we have to go to the gas station and fill up our cars and it costs $100. When we have to go buy food, eggs, I think have increased, I want to say 3 times their price a few months ago. So if you look at it, to me, those two, they're separate, but they're intertwined. The one allows for the other, and the other, if we keep paying for all these foreign wars, again, it's going to cause inflation. It's going to be a drain on our economy. The money that we are investing for weapons of war could be used for many other things. Frankly, it should just be left in people's pockets to determine what they would like to do with it. If it was kept at home, however, and we weren't financing wars in other countries, that money could have stayed here at the very least and helped us with the problems we have here at home.
Yep. Well, and it leads to the erosion of our civil rights when you see those wars come home, right? And that goes right to the next part, because this has been, and it's funny. I'm seeing this across the board, Chris. A lot of my conservative friends, even they are starting to wake up to what we were saying back when the Patriot Act was passed back in the 2004 timeframe. And granted, I was a wee lad at the time. I wasn't really focused too much on that kind of stuff. But
I know around me that was pretty much the sentiment of your mainstream Republican was, yeah, pro Patriot Act. What, are you not a patriot? Do you not support our military and support America? And that was the sentiment across the board. And then all of a sudden, fast forward to where we are today, and your average Republican is not only questioning that, they're questioning the FBI. Some of them are even saying, hey, we should go ahead and abolish the FBI. That's music to my ears, but it all goes back to the fact that now they're seeing the war on terror, in this case, turn inward, and it's impacting directly our civil rights as American citizens.
I agree with you. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. Any time, it seems like any war. I was reading something and they were talking about how when foreign wars or empire comes home, the book, I remember them talking about the war in the Philippines, which really, I wrote a little article for the newsletter. I wish I had it with me. In any event, a lot of the I'm a retired police officer, and this was going back to all people like August Vollmer, who was in the forefront of like modernizing and professionalizing the police back in, I think, the early 1900s. What I never knew about him, and I never even learned in college, was that he had served in the war in the Philippines, which was glossed over by any of my history or social studies teachers. It was a blip in the book. They were saying that a lot of the ideas that he had and were he came up with them when he was over there serving in the Philippines, and then when he brought them home to the United States, he applied them to policing. A lot of the things that they did to the Filipinos were really just horrible. I don't know if you know anything about, call it what you will, the Philippine insurrection, the Philippine rebellion, or whatever. But after we kicked Spain out of the Philippines, instead of just giving the Filipinos their freedom, we did what empires do, and we started to kill them and put them in concentration camps and do water torture on them. All things I never knew. So when August Vollmer came back and he was applying tactics to policing got very, how should I say, got more physical. I don't want to use the word brutal. I'm trying to find another word. You basically, when you got a bunch of guys who were overseas as soldiers or Marines, and they're used to using violence, and they're killing people all the time and using violence. When they bring that type of thing home, oftentimes their policies and their tactics reflect that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, when the Fed, civil rights and all that we were talking about, that type of thing comes back, ties into the FBI violating people's rights, the Patriot Act. So the Patriot Act, again, I started to read about it. You're right. A lot of Republicans and people were for it back when George Bush was president. I'm reading about it. I was reading a book by Glenn Greenwald. It was, I forget the title, but he was basically talking about how Edward Snowden had come to him, giving him his information. And I started to read about the FBI violating our rights. This FBI are the same people that wrote a letter to Martin Luther King, a man of peace, a man who the civil rights for him was all about peaceful means, and they wrote a letter to him that he should kill himself. I had never known this, and when I found out about it, again, the more digging you start to do, the more research you start to do on these entities, federal entities, you find out that they're violating our civil rights. And again, the Patriot Act, I'm sorry, that doesn't trump the Constitution. I believe we have the Fourth Amendment. Nothing is supposed to trump that. As a police officer, I couldn't do any of the things that the FBI are doing. I needed probable cause to lock people up. If I was to do a wiretap or get into somebody's personal effects, I needed a warrant. Apparently, they don't even need that. That I can't. That makes me upset and angry. That shouldn't be allowed. You're not supposed to be able to trump the Constitution with any of that stuff.
They are the law. They're like the Fauci. He is the science. It's how our expert class is, Chris. Unfortunately, and you know what it does? It emboldens a lot of these more petty tyrants you see in our bureaucratic organizations across the country. It emboldens them to then go ahead and impose their ridiculous edicts on the plebes, the working class. And what it ends up doing is it impacts the average person out there directly in a negative way. And talk to us. You're seeing that right now take place in New Jersey as it pertains to breweries. How is that looking?
That's right. That's right. We were just talking about that. So New Jersey is craft breweries are small businesses. The one that I'm talking about, let me look here. The gentleman's name was Marvin Bowe. He came to one of our Libertarian meetings. He owns Swedesboro Brewing Company. And he was just telling us, again, I had no idea. I love beer, but I had no idea what the state is doing to these small businesses. So the state is coming up with really crazy regulations that only apply to craft breweries. Some of the things that they're forcing them to do, for instance, every craft brewery or microbrewery has to have a guided tour of the facilities. This is a bad idea on so many levels. These are places where you have kegs which weigh 50 pounds, maybe heavier, could fall on somebody. You have a little kid going through the tour. They could get hurt. You have other machinery around there. This is really no place for people to be walking through for a tour, yet they're mandated to do it. Some of the other things, they can't sell food. I can remember when I was stationed in Quantico in Virginia. Virginia actually mandated, right or wrong, mandated that any place that sold alcohol had to have food there, because the idea, they didn't want people to just go solely there to drink and get drunk. They also had to have food there. I'm guessing part of the idea was if you ate something, the alcohol you wouldn't be able to get drunk as quickly. So it blew my mind when he told me they couldn't serve food there. They're not allowed to even offer soda for free if you have a designated driver. They can't even offer soda for free for a designated driver. They can't have food trucks there. They can't have other people bring their food into the business at all. The problem with this is that you just had COVID. Part of the problem is that you just had COVID lockdowns, which destroyed lots of small businesses. The big box stores were allowed to stay open, but the small businesses, the mom and pop stores, had to shut down. So this destroyed people's livelihoods. Then you have, when it applies to craft breweries, then you have these crazy regulations. So for them, you have a 1-2 punch. You had the COVID lockdowns quite recently, which really destroyed their business, and then you have these crazy regulations. I don't know how these guys are going to survive. To boot, it has kind of a ripple effect. Small businesses are the backbone of the economy, and you'd really never know it by the way politicians are treating them. If these food trucks were allowed to come there, if live entertainment was allowed to come there, other people who had their small businesses would be able to make a living and prosper. It could have a ripple effect for the economy, the local economy as well. And taking into account other people with small businesses, it could really help. You'd never know it by the way that lawmakers are putting these crazy regulations on craft breweries. And these regulations are only for craft breweries. Wineries don't have it. Other bars and restaurants don't have it. Any of these people, these larger entities, these larger businesses or corporations, breweries, bars, all these entities, if they're big enough, they have money that they can donate to politicians' campaigns and sway their opinion. The largest ones can send lobbyists to Trenton here in the state and have the lawmakers pass laws that really are for them and nobody else. They help the people that can send the lobbyists or send the largest donations, and really small business owners, mom and pop shops like the craft breweries are left out in the cold to fend for themselves. So people that say that Jersey's like more of a blue state, and supposedly I have heard people say that Democrats are supposed to be for the little guy. They're for the working man. I choose not to believe it anymore. I really do. if it was ever true, and I don't really think it was ever true, it's certainly not true today, and it's certainly not true for these craft breweries.
Well, there's a reason I moved out of the Northeast to the Midwest, and I'll tell you what, it's predominantly because there is and this is the reality, folks, there is a staunch difference between your traditional Democrat and Republican nowadays. You have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and living out in a red state, yeah, objectively better. Sorry, that's just the truth. So also with that being said, hey, if people are looking to even make a difference in the predominant blue areas and maybe vote gold, hey, why not give that a shot? We're at the point now where I want to go ahead and give final thoughts here, Chris. So let's first and foremost make sure we're focusing on where folks can go ahead and support you if they want to go ahead and do that. But number two, final thoughts you have here for the audience, any takeaways that you want folks to walk away from today?
If you are like I was 15 years ago, you were told that there were only two parties. You were said there's either Democrat or Republican. If I walked into a restaurant and somebody told me all we have are Coke and Pepsi, I would have to say there's not coffee, there's not tea, there's not Sprite, for goodness sake. No, the only thing out there is Coke or Pepsi. I don't like Coke or Pepsi. I don't want to vote for the duopoly again. If you want real change, if you want something different and something better, vote gold. Vote for me. I'm not accountable to anybody but you. So I would say vote Libertarian, especially if you're in New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District. Vote for me.
All right. Well, my final thoughts, folks. Number one, if you enjoyed today's episode, well, please go ahead and give it a share. Number two, please go ahead and support our sponsor. Today is Young Americans for Liberty. Also, I want to go ahead and say, if you are enjoying what we're doing here at the Brian Nichols Show, well, go ahead and support us. If you want to give us a one-time donation, you can do that over at PayPal. Or if you want to go ahead and become a supporting listener, $5 a month. Hey, that's not too bad. $5 a month for 5 episodes a week times usually 4 weeks in a month. You're getting lots and lots of content here at the Brian Nichols Show. So if you guys get value from that, I would appreciate it. It helps us keep the lights on, having awesome guests like Chris here in the program to leave you educated, enlightened, and informed. But with that being said, folks, that's really all I had for you. Chris, with that being said, social media, where can folks go ahead and find you? Want to continue the conversation?
Okay. So my website, www.chrisrussomannoforcongress.com, all one word there. My email, russomannoforcongress@gmail.com. Let me see. Bear with me. I got to, okay. So Facebook, facebook.com/Russomanno for Congress, Twitter @Russomanno, RUSSOMANNO CD3. And Instagram is RUSSOMANNO FORCONGRESS, Russomanno for Congress.
All right. And just to be safe, folks, if you're an audio listener and you're like, I help me, folks. Here, I got you. What we're going to do, we'll include all those links right there in the show notes. All you got to do, go ahead, click the artwork on your podcast catcher. It will bring you right over to briannicholsshow.com, where you can find today's episode, plus all 579 other episodes of the program, including all of Chris's social media links. And by the way, we're over on Odyssey as well as on YouTube. So please make sure you go ahead and give us a subscribe there. And when you're over on today's episode, make sure you hit that little notification bell so you're not missing a single time we go live. But that's all we have for you, folks. That being said, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Chris Russomanno. We'll see you tomorrow.
For listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.